What's up, everybody? Jorge Masvidal versus Nate Diaz 2 is in the books, went down in the boxing ring last night. And guys, I want to mention, I told you this was going to be good. I told you this was going to be entertaining. There is never a boring Nate Diaz boxing match, fight, anything that Nate does, it's always going to be entertaining. And basically, you could say the same for Jorge Masvidal. Both of these guys, man, they bring it every time. They know how to sell a fight. They know how to really bring out the entertaining side of whether it's MMA or boxing. Both of these guys delivered. And I broke down this fight, here on my channel before it happened. A lot of people are, I don't care about this. This is stupid, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, look, in the boxing ring, this is going to be a lot more interesting because in MMA, Jorge is a better overall striker than Nate Diaz. But what Nate provides is that volume, the pace, and the pressure. And I was like, I think that that's going to favor him with his busyness, his activity, and the volume. I figured that the judges were going to see that and look at that and take that into heavy consideration. So what we're going to do in this video, first, I predicted Nate Diaz to get this done by decision. So got to pat myself on the back there. We're going to take a look at the way the judges scored this fight because some of these judges' scorecards are crazy, man. Then we're going to take a look at the striking totals, which kind of surprised me, and I'm not sure. I guess they're accurate, but I don't know. I was kind of surprised by what we saw there. So first, let's take a look at the judges' scorecards. So first, the first judge, Zachary Young, scored the contest 98-92 for Nate Diaz. That's crazy. That is crazy, man. Look, I thought that this fight, if you would have called it a draw, which one of the judges gave it a draw, I could have seen that. But if someone was going to win this fight, this was maybe a round or two difference. This thing was absolutely, in my opinion, very close, right? Because Nate Diaz, he was landing the volume, it was punches and bunches, but nothing was really hurting Jorge. He was a lot more active, but then yet again, Jorge was also very active, digging to the body well, landing some good body shots, landing some very good shots upstairs that were, I don't know if they rocked Nate, but they definitely had an effect. Then we go to Fernando, however the hell you say his name there. He scored at 95-95, a draw. I don't necessarily have an issue with that, right? Just for exactly what I stated before, the volume of Diaz, but then the power shots of Jorge Masvidal. And then the third judge, Rudy Barragan, 97-93 for Nate Diaz. Again, that's a little bit more to my liking of if you were going to score it for Nate Diaz or you're going to score it for anybody. I thought that this was going to be a round or two difference, right? This thing was so close, man, because you had Nate who was moving forward the whole time. And I first want to mention, these guys, their cardio and the output of both of them, I think it was over 1,400 strikes total between the two guys, and both of them were landing a crazy clip because here, I'll throw up the striking stats for you. This is insane. 36 jabs from Diaz, 30 from Masvidal, 27 punches to the body landed to Nate's 20, 152 power punches from Masvidal, 115 from Nate, which I figured if anybody was going to have the power advantage, it was going to be game bred. But the total punches, this is crazy. 182 from Jorge, 151 from Nate, but the total punches, 740 from Nate, 654 from Jorge Masvidal. Two guys at 39 years of age, man. Going in there, they both came ready. That's what I loved about this boxing match, man. You could tell both guys knew that there was a lot at stake here, right? Because Jorge, 39, Nate 39, is Nate going to go back to the UFC? I don't think that they let him do that, right? The UFC doesn't want to set the precedent that you could just build your name here, leave, go do other things, and then come back. So I'm not sure we see that. But Jorge, he's got a couple boxing matches left that the UFC is going to allow him to do. There's some names out there, and I don't think his stock diminishes at all. And if you're going to ask me, who was more technical and looked a lot more like a boxer out there, to me, I think it's Jorge. I was actually really impressed with the way that Masvidal looked, man. I thought that his head movement was good. He had a very good high guard, the way he was moving, the way he was rolling with shots. He was landing some good power shots. He was digging to the body well. And I think that he confused and surprised Nate a little bit there because I'm sure Nate was preparing predominantly with an orthodox style of fighter. Even in some of Nate's vlogs, you could see that he was, going with guys that are more orthodox style, which I'm sure Nate goes and spars against just about, all different types of guys. But I think that the southpaw approach from Masvidal, I think, surprised Nate a little bit. And I think that kind of caught Nate off guard a little bit. But no doubt about it, man, these guys at 39 years of age to go out there, put on the pace that they did, and put on the show that they did, incredibly, incredibly impressive. And there was a noticeable difference from the Nate Diaz that we saw against Jake Paul and the Nate Diaz that we saw last night against Masvidal. And I don't know if that's because You know, Nate, he said he had a pinched nerve in his arm, couldn't really, couldn't get the jab going against Jake Paul. Was he worried because Jake was much bigger? Nate was a little heavier in that matchup. There were some different variables that I'm sure maybe played a factor. But Nate, nonetheless, man, that jab was snapping. It looked good. The straight left hand was landing pretty clean. I don't think he was landing a ton of damaging shots, but he definitely was putting on the pace and pressure that we know Diaz brings to the table. Masvidal, his cardio held up. He looked good for 10 rounds as well. I think that in the earlier rounds, Nate kind of got a good start. Jorge in the mid round started to pour it on. And then as it got a little bit later in the fight, those last couple of rounds, I think that Nate was kind of, because again, everyone's going to look at the stats and they're going to say, oh, but Jorge, he landed more shots and Nate put out more shots. So it should technically go to Jorge. He landed the more significant shots. But Diaz ate the shots so well that I don't know how, when the judges are looking at that, are they actually considering that a legit, just the way that it's being perceived because Nate ate the shot so well. Again, I could have seen it going to Nate Diaz by a couple rounds there, though the last judge's scorecard there, it's something that would have made sense to me. Or if they had it in Masvidal's favor, I could absolutely understand that as well. Robbery, guys, it's not a robbery, right? A robbery would be like Jorge Masvidal was just putting a beating on Nate Diaz for 10 rounds, and Nate basically was just getting outscored in every single round, and then they gave it to Nate. Like, that's not what happened. And again, this is what happens with fighting. Whenever you let something go to the judges' scorecards, especially in boxing, you just never know what can happen. And again, I get it. It's in California. People are going to say, Nate's got the hometown favoritism, which could be. But again, I don't have a problem with it going in the direction of Nate Diaz. If Masvidal would have won this thing, I wouldn't have had a problem going in his direction either, because you had punches and bunches. You had quality over quantity. Even though he had a pretty high output, he landed some good shots. But nonetheless, not a robbery, guys. We had all these traditional boxers on the card, right? We had these names and this and that. And the two guys from MMA go in there. They put on a show. They entertain. They deliver. I thought it was a really fun event, but I want to hear from you all down in the comments. Like this video. Comment your thoughts. Did you think it was a robbery? Do you think the judges got it right? Let me know who you guys thought won this boxing match. Subscribe to the channel. Help your boy out. I appreciate you. See you next time.